name is Heather White. I'm the Director of Education and Outreach here with the Pitt County Arts Council at Emerge, and we're excited to be doing pumpkin carving demonstration today. So we're going to talk a little bit about some tips when you're carving your pumpkin. I think it's really important to look at pumpkin carving each year as a kind of tradition that you can do with your family. You don't have to be greatly artistic to do something like this, to go beyond just the triangles and basic jack-o'-lantern face. So one of the first things we'll talk about is that you can actually do a lot with just purchasing a pumpkin carving kit. I know a lot of people use knives that you may have at home and things like that, but pumpkin carving kits are really inexpensive and definitely help a whole lot. You can see here we have different pumpkin carving tools to choose from. You'll see that some have smaller teeth and bigger teeth. You don't have to have all of these. You can just have one sturdy one. This one's a little more sturdy, and so it tends to last longer and doesn't bend when you're using it. But I would definitely recommend getting something like this to start with. The next step that you can do, you can use some designs that come with some of the pumpkin carving kits. But if you want to be creative and go a little bit past that, one of the things that you can do is actually draw out your own design. What we do is we actually start out just with a regular piece of type paper. And what's great is you can practice, really kind of getting your ideas out there, your kids' ideas. And so what you want to do is when you come up with your design, you can see I've already done mine. And what I did was I kind of came up with, I wanted to do a ghost design. And then the next thing I did was mark out the space that would be cut out. So what we're really looking at is a lot of positive and negative space. The positive space with the ghost is what will stay on the pumpkin, and then the negative space is what I've colored in with the black marker is what we'll cut out. So it's really nice to do that and have it really distinguished before you start. The next thing that I like to do to really be able to get this onto your pumpkin is we actually take this design and tape it onto the pumpkin. Our pumpkins are a little smaller than what our design is, but you can always make this kind of work. So what we really want to do is I use just a heavy grade tape that we can actually cut it and put it on the pumpkin with. Box tape tends to work really well. You can use masking tape too. Just due to the shape of the paper, it's not going to stay on perfectly, but it really does help to do this step. The next thing I do, some of the pumpkin carving kits, you'll actually see that it comes with a tool that you can actually transfer your design to it with. If you don't have something like that, toothpicks work really well, as do the skewers that you use for like barbecuing and things. And so that's typically what we use. And what we actually do is we go through, and on the design, we actually poke along the lines of what's going to be cut out. The closer that you can poke this, it does give you a nice line to start with. This is probably one of the most time-consuming parts. You can actually do this before you hollow your pumpkin out. The pumpkin's a little more sturdy, and we kind of prefer to do it that way. If you'd rather remove the gunk out before you do that, either way. Sometimes what happens if you do remove the pumpkin insides out before is the pumpkin can get a little slimy. So we like doing this step first. Sometimes the skewers get a little more smushed on the end, so you may want to have several that you can kind of switch towards. This is definitely something that kids can do if you're working with children. With smaller children in particular, transferring the design, they can help with this part and with the drawing of the design if they're not able to help with the cutting portion. So it's really a way to get everybody involved. When you work on your designs, one of the things that you can think about too, and if you do choose one that comes with your pumpkin carving kit, a lot of times the ones that come with the kit will actually have the level of difficulty with it. And that's a nice thing to look at if it does have it and you're choosing one of those. The portions that have smaller areas to cut out, when it gets, some of the smaller things, that is when it becomes more difficult as far as making the cuts and making sure you leave the portion of the pumpkin that's supposed to stay afterwards. So that's something that you can think about as you do that. If you're doing it yourself, it's really nice that when you do the design, if you color it with the black or another color or marker to see as you go. It kind of lets you know what portion will have to be cut out too. So that's always nice. Even though this takes a little bit of time, you'll definitely be glad that you did it when you get to the portion of actually transferring. So after you do that, when you pull this off, what's really great is you can see that you can actually see the design on the pumpkin. And so you do have kind of a starting point. So the next part is going to be the messiest part of the whole process, which will be removing everything from the pumpkin. With that, you may have to stand up to get a good ability to be able to cut this. Sometimes if you're working with younger kids, working on the floor is a really good option. If you buy a pumpkin carving kit, you do have this trusty scraper that works really well. There's no easy way with this. A lot of times with kids in particular, this is the part they don't like. So I know a lot of parents end up doing this portion. I think my mom probably did that a lot when I was younger too. But it's really nice to go ahead and get this as clean as you can. Depending on what kind of pumpkin you're using, will depend on kind of the ease of this. Some pumpkins do tend to be a little more stringy on the inside, and so the more you scrape, the more strings you get. But if that's the case, if you keep working at it, you can definitely get it. You can always save the seeds too to do some pumpkin seeds at the end, which is always a nice treat. One of the problems with pumpkins a lot of times is that people want to carve them early, and with that you always, in Eastern North Carolina, risk the visit of bugs at the end and things like that. One of the things that we found that works really well to do a little bit to prevent that is after you finish carving everything, you can actually use Vaseline to do a layer on the inside of the pumpkin and any part of the pumpkin that's exposed, and that does help it to last a little bit longer. A lot of times if you don't get the stringy part, you know, kind of clean nicely on the inside, when you do light it up, you will see a portion of kind of that left over. So it's nice to clean it as, you know, best that you can. I think we've got it pretty good. There might be a little bit left, but we can work with that. The next part, you want to really look at your pumpkin design you have going on. You know, what I feel like works really well is to cut out some of the smaller pieces first, because the pumpkin's a little more sturdy. So that's personally how I like to start. So I'm going to start actually with the ghost that I'm doing, his eyes. So yeah, I usually do the smaller things first because you have a little more to press on while you're doing it. And a lot of times it's easier to push them out from the back. Don't worry if you do, you know, kind of have a mishap as you're going. I very well may, and just a little bit myself. You can always, you know, fix it as you go. It's your pumpkin, so you have creative liberty. The little tool that we had earlier too is nice for kind of working with the poking out as well. You can always poke towards the inside, and if you can't get something coming out, you just go back and cut some more. With smaller things, that is one of the things that's one of the more difficult things. But you want to be able to make sure when you're doing it that you can kind of see through, because that means it's what you're going to get the light coming through. And you can see there when you carve, sometimes depending on how you carve it out, you'll have your shape, but you still won't be able to see the light coming through when you put the candle in. So if you have something like that happen, you can always go back through and really kind of cut pieces out so that you can get that glow. And after you do that, you can definitely go on to more of the larger portions. You can see as I'm carving, I don't necessarily stay exactly, but I stay as close as I can. You know, you don't have to be perfect with it when you're doing it. All right. And see, that's some of the stringy part I was talking about that you can kind of get. Again, you can always go back in and kind of cut some of that and clean it up as you go. So you can see our ghost starting to take form here a little bit. All right, so that is our nice ghost that we've done. And so, as I said, you can most definitely, as kind of messy as it sounds, you can definitely take Vaseline as you get to the end, and really just kind of put it around the edges and within the inside, and that really will make it last a little bit longer. And then every top you cut out is unique, so it's finding how it goes back. And there you go.